Oh, let's talk about it. Now, the National Basketball Association, right? The NBA. Well, thank you, everybody. At least I know it's working one way. It's full of BS and surprises. Should not surprise anyone. Not at all. Not in the least bit. But anyhow, let's see what's actually going on here. The Mandalorian, right? Great show. Keep getting alerts about it. I already just did my review over on Screen Thing for the whole season 8. I just did the last episode and reviewed it. Now, let's continue on from here. The National Basketball Association. If this was only about basketball, I would love it probably to death. But to sell it, they have to create these soap opera antics to lure people in to care about the series. In their mind. Here's their approach. Their approach is, what else are we supposed to do, Cena? Like, this is us, and this is what we do. What other choice do we have? Oh well. Anyhow, the blow up after the 1991 Pistons, Isiah Thomas walking off the court. As you can still see, this stuff gets talked about even today. A 1985 so-called freeze-out game of Michael Jordan that never existed. Never existed. Again, Isiah Thomas is the guy they want to go after. This is the most easiest person to be the target of. Dennis Rodman said something. Isiah Thomas hilariously, was being sarcastic and saying the comment back again. But he took all the blunt of the blame, the media, everything. Attacked Isiah. Nobody came to his aid. Knowing it wasn't true. No one came to his aid. Except for his teammates. So, Michael Jordan, it became his league in the 90s, and he was so arrogant. So, like, he's an a-hole. In every aspect of the word, Michael Jordan is an a-hole. He knows it. Now, the difference between him and LeBron is simple. LeBron's the B word. Michael Jordan's an a-hole. That's just how it works. Now, let's take it even further. Michael Jordan was playing all type of politics in the 90s. Now that the Bulls are winning, he feels, I'm the one in control now. Now, to the point that when he retired, the NBA was not prepared for him to part ways and step aside. So when he retired, this led to a major, major problem. And you might ask yourself, well, what was these major problems? What happened? Well, it was quite simple. The NBA felt a certain way when Michael retired. So immediately, they blamed the Pistons. They wanted to take away the Pistons' look and image. They gave them Grant Hill and tried to rebuild their image, change the NBA so it wouldn't be as physical. Saying, we got to change this. They blamed all physical play on the Detroit Pistons. Changed the Pistons' logo, color of their jerseys, everything. Trying to make them a new thing when they brought in Grant Hill. Grant Hill didn't ask for that. But they was like, we got to get away from that Detroit image and make Detroit fun. We don't want them to be looked at as villains. Not with Grant. Grant's a nice guy. Now, Isiah Thomas has been an all-star in his career every year. And in 1993, his last all-star game, it was in Utah. Again, why, I have no idea. Why would they ever keep going back to Utah? But they booed Isiah Thomas. He was the only player to be booed. Because they remember just the year prior, the Karl Malone elbow. And the whole incident about John Stockton and the Dream Team. And how Isiah was lighting John up. But they booed Isiah at every turn. Now, what makes the event even more strange is the fact that not only did they boo Isiah, they kept bringing up the Dream Team. They kept bringing up all the things that happened the year prior. You know, taken away from the greatest All-Star game probably played when Magic played his last All-Star game. Just the year prior. And how Isiah was the one that helped usher that to happen. This was the first year it wasn't going to have Magic on the other side. of the All-Star game. When Isiah and Magic would host the All-Star games or be the representatives, the game was electric. And there was I don't think in '91 Isiah played, because I think he was in the cast. I think he got voted in, but I don't know if he actually played. Then in I was in 1994. The NBA was tired. Strings were pulled because the Bulls could not get two players. You know, they always kept getting two players on the team. That was in the All-Star game. And that would frustrate the Bulls. Is like, hey, how did Detroit Pistons get three players in the All-Star game? They had Dennis Rodman, who was it? Rodman, Joe Dumars, and Isiah. And they freaked out. How is that the All-Star game? Well, it was because Dennis Rodman was just a phenom defensive player. And now we all know why. But Scotty didn't like it. They felt Horace should be here. He should be representing our team. That's just the way they saw it. They didn't see him as a major piece that he needed to be. Until the year Michael was gone, Horace stepped his game up tremendously. And Michael Jordan wanted B.J. Armstrong to get recognized for what he was doing, and made sure B.J. Armstrong got into the All-Star game. So in '94, I mean, yeah, was it '94? Yeah. Horace, BJ, and what was that? It was Horace, BJ, and Scotty that made the list. But Jordan was the one pulling the strings from the behind the scenes, making sure that the voters didn't bring Isiah in there. So unfortunately, which was terrible for everybody involved, this turned into something else that it completely did not need to be. Kenny Anderson, who had a great season that year. Kenny did some things that people would not believe. Had a great season for the New Jersey Nets. John Starks was selected. You had Mark Price, who was having a great year for Cleveland. And this is when Price's three-point game had really like stepped up, and Cleveland was having a miracle season. This was the Derek Coleman, Kenny Anderson era, and what they could have had. This is the year Charles Oakley made it, and he beat out Dennis Rodman, which was ridiculous. But anyhow, needless to say, the only Piston that they wanted on the team, and the only guy that they liked and they could respect, is one player. And usually that one player is Joe Dumars. And he wasn't selected. Michael Jordan basically selected this team. This was to highlight BJ, Horace Grant, and Scotty. And his homie, Charles Oakley, who he felt Oaktree didn't get the respect he deserved. Jordan helped put that team together. A lot of people didn't know he did that. Out of basketball, he did that behind the scenes with Rod Thorne. Also, you might say, well, the NBA is selected by votes. Kenny Anderson got more votes than Isiah Thomas in 1994. If anybody believe that, you are out your rabbit a mind. They knew this was Isiah's last year playing. And to let him go out in his last All-Star game, they didn't even want it. It was disrespectful. It was disgraceful. But Isiah took it like a champion and said, well, it's time for the young guys to take over now. And, hopefully Kenny have, a lot of years of leading the All-Star game like I did. And Kenny Anderson, all this pressure was thrown on him. And Isiah could have made a big fuss about it. He just took it with his chin up high. Didn't complain. Didn't say nothing. Just played the game. Kept it moving. But he took that pressure off Kenny. But unfortunately for Kenny, this will be his first and only All-Star game. Injuries kicked in. John Starks is the one that injured him when they played, actually, in the playoffs, when everyone felt New Jersey had their best chance to win a championship. So, Kenny broke his hand, I think, on a play after being fouled by Starks. And that changed the dynamic. But the Jordan feud, this never gets spoken about because this is a behind closed doors thing. So that you can't really pinpoint what actually happened. But people know what happened in the 1994 All-Star game. And it was like, well, why Michael just didn't do this in 93 when he played right with Isiah. They thought at that time, even in 93, Isiah wouldn't make it. He didn't have enough votes. And they were trying to get him out. He didn't have the votes. But here's the thing. The Detroit Pistons, none of them, and they don't turn in their votes to almost the end of it. So Isiah was well off when they were doing the votes. And then right before the election was called, Trump would have had a fit back then. I had it won! right on like the last day of votes, they just hit the ballots like crazy. And they go get all the votes filled out. The team always makes sure their guys go. And Isiah goes. And the team would rally, get the votes, and make sure they would go. Like each player would have at least probably 1,000 votes, or at least 500-600 votes themselves that they got through their families and friends. Have them vote. Because we got to remember, this wasn't internet. It's mail-in ballots, like an election. And Isiah got in. And Isiah wasn't supposed to get in. They didn't want to play with Isiah no more. So this year, 1994, Michael is not even in the league no more. But they didn't want Zeke playing in the league. Scotty, Horace, and BJ, Michael had to call in a favor. And even got his boy Oak Tree into the All-Star game. Now, Jordan can tell you, you can ask him about it, and he gonna lie like he talked about. He lied about not having Isiah Thomas kicked off the Dream Team. So, anyhow, I didn't took up too much of your time. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the page, hit that notification bell. My name is Carcino. I am out.